Random House Audio and Books on Tape present A Lesson Before Dying by Ernest J. Gaines. Read for you by J. Long.
Chapter 1. I was not there, yet I was there. No, I did not go to the trial. I did not hear the verdict, because I knew all the time what it would be. Still, I was there. I was there as much as anyone else was there. Either I sat behind my aunt and his godmother, or I sat beside them. Both are large women, but his godmother is larger. She is of average height, 5'4", 5'5", but weighs nearly 200 pounds. Once she and my aunt had found their places, 2 rows behind the table where he sat with his court-appointed attorney. His godmother became as immobile as a great stone, or as one of our oak or cypress stumps. She never got up once to get water or go to the bathroom down in the basement. She just sat there, staring at the boy's clean-cropped head where he sat at the front table with his lawyer. Even after he had gone to await the juror's verdict, her eyes remained in that one direction. She heard nothing said in the courtroom, not by the prosecutor, not by the defense attorney, not by my aunt. Oh yes, she did hear one word for sure. Hog. It was my aunt whose eyes followed the prosecutor as he moved from one side of the courtroom to the other, pounding his fist into the palm of his hand, pounding the table where his papers lay, pounding the rail that separated the jurors from the rest of the courtroom. It was my aunt who followed his every move, not his godmother. She was not even listening. She had gotten tired of listening. She knew, as we all knew, what the outcome would be. A white man had been killed during a robbery, and though 2 of the robbers had been killed on the spot, 1 had been captured, and he, too, would have to die. Though he told them no, he had nothing to do with it, that he was on his way to the White Rabbit Bar and Lounge when Brother and Bear drove up beside him and offered him a ride. After he got into the car, they asked him if he had any money. When he told them he didn't have a solitary dime, it was then that Brother and Bear started talking credit, saying that old Gropé should not mind crediting them a pint since he knew them well, and he knew that the grinding season was coming soon and they would be able to pay him back then. The store was empty, except for the old storekeeper, Alcée Gropé, who sat on a stool behind the counter. He spoke first. He asked Jefferson about his godmother. Jefferson told him his Nanan was all right. Old Gropé nodded his head. "You tell her for me I say hello," he told Jefferson. He looked at Brother and Bear, but he didn't like them. He didn't trust them. Jefferson could see that in his face. "Do for you boys?" he asked. "A ball of that apple white there, Mr. Gropey," Bear said. Old Gropé got the bottle off the shelf, but he did not set it on the counter. He could see that the boys had already been drinking, and he became suspicious. "You boys got money?" he asked. Brother and Bear spread out all the money they had in their pockets on top of the counter. Old Gropé counted it with his eyes. "That's not enough," he said. "Come on now, Mr. Gropey," they pleaded with him. You know you gonna get your money soon as grinding start." "No," he said. "Money is slack everywhere. You bring the money, you get your wine." He turned to put the bottle back on the shelf. One of the boys, the one called Bear, started around the counter. "You stop there," Gropé told him. "Go back." Bear had been drinking and his eyes were glossy. He walked unsteadily, grinning all the time as he continued around the counter. "Go back," Gropé told him. "I mean the last time now. Go back." Bear continued. Gropé moved quickly toward the cash register, where he withdrew a revolver and started shooting. Soon there was shooting from another direction. When it was quiet again, Bear, Gropé, and Brother were all down on the floor, and only Jefferson was standing. He wanted to run, but he couldn't run. He couldn't even think. He didn't know where he was. He didn't know how he had gotten there. He couldn't remember ever getting into the car. He couldn't remember a thing he had done all day. He heard a voice calling. He thought the voice was coming from the liquor shelves. Then he realized that old Gropé was not dead, and that it was he who was calling. He made himself go to the end of the counter. He had to look across bare to see the storekeeper. Both lay between the counter and the shelves of alcohol. Several bottles had been broken, and alcohol and blood covered their bodies as well as the floor. He stood there gaping at the old man slumped against the bottom shelf of gallons and half-gallons of wine. He didn't know whether he should go to him or whether he should run out of there. The old man continued to call, "Boy! Boy! Boy!" Jefferson became frightened. The old man was still alive. He had seen him. He would tell on him. Now he started babbling. It wasn't me. It wasn't me, Mr. Gropey. It was Brother and Bear. Brother shot you. It wasn't me. They made me come with them. You got to tell the law that, Mr. Gropey. You hear me, Mr. Gropey? But he was talking to a dead man. Still, he did not run. He didn't know what to do. He didn't believe that this had happened. Again, he couldn't remember how he had gotten there. He didn't know whether he had come there with Brother and Bear, or whether he had walked in and seen all this after it happened. He looked from one dead body to the other. He didn't know whether he should call someone on the telephone or run. He had never dialed a telephone in his life, but he had seen other people use them. He didn't know what to do. He was standing by the liquor shelf, and suddenly he realized he needed a drink and needed it badly. He snatched a bottle off the shelf, wrung off the cap, and turned up the bottle all in one continuous motion. The whiskey burned him like fire, his chest, his belly, even his nostrils. His eyes watered. He shook his head to clear his mind. Now he began to realize where he was. Now he began to realize fully what had happened. Now he knew he had to get out of there. He turned. He saw the money in the cash register under the little wire clamps. He knew taking money was wrong. His Nanan had told him never to steal. He didn't want to steal. But he didn't have a solitary dime in his pocket. And nobody was around, so who could say he stole it? Surely not one of the dead men. He was halfway across the room, the money stuffed inside his jacket pocket, the half bottle of whiskey clutched in his hand, when two white men walked into the store. That was his story. The prosecutor's story was different. The prosecutor argued that Jefferson and the other two had gone there with the full intention of robbing the old man and then killing him so that he could not identify them. When the old man and the other two robbers were all dead, it proved the kind of animal he really was. Stuffed the money into his pockets and celebrated the event by drinking over their still bleeding bodies. The defense argued that Jefferson was innocent of all charges, except being at the wrong place at the wrong time. There was absolutely no proof that there had been a conspiracy between himself and the other two. The fact that Mr. Gropé shot only Brother and Bear was proof of Jefferson's innocence. Why did Mr. Gropé shoot one boy twice and never shoot at Jefferson once? Because Jefferson was merely an innocent bystander. He took the whiskey to calm his nerves, not to celebrate. He took the money out of hunger and plain stupidity. Gentlemen of the jury, look at this boy. I almost said man, but I can't say man. Oh, sure, he's reached the age of 21 when we, civilized men, consider the male species as reached manhood. But would you call this a man? No, not I. I would call it a boy and a fool. A fool is not aware of right and wrong. A fool does what others tell him to do. A fool got into that automobile. A man with a modicum of intelligence would have seen that those racketeers meant no good, but not a fool. A fool got into that automobile. A fool rode to the grocery store. A fool stood by and watched this happen, not having the sense to run. Gentlemen of the jury, look at him. Look at him. Look at this. Do you see a man sitting here? Do you see a man sitting here? I ask you, I implore, look carefully. Do you see a man sitting here? Look at the shape of this skull, this face as flat as the palm of my hand. Look deeply into those eyes. Do you see a modicum of intelligence? Do you see anyone here who could plan a murder or a robbery? Can plan anything. A cornered animal to strike quickly out of fear, a trait inherited from his ancestors in the deepest jungle of blackest Africa. Yes, that he can do. But to plan, gentlemen of the jury. No, gentlemen. This skull here holds no plans. What you see here is a thing that acts on command. A thing to hold the handle of a plow. A thing to load your bales of cotton. A thing to dig your ditches, to chop your wood, to pull your corn. That is what you see here. But you do not see anything capable of planning a robbery or a murder. He does not even know the size of his clothes or his shoes. Ask him to name the months of the year. Ask him, does Christmas come before or after the 4th of July? Mention the names of Keats, Byron, Scott, and see whether the eyes will show one moment of recognition. Ask him to describe a rose, to quote one passage from the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. Gentlemen of the jury, this man planned a robbery? Oh, pardon me, I surely did not mean to insult your intelligence by saying man. Would you please forgive me for committing such an error? Gentlemen of the jury, who would be hurt if you took this life? Look back to that second row. Please look. I want all 12 of you honorable men to turn your heads and look back to that second row. What you see there has been everything to him. Mama, grandmother, and godmother, everything. Look at her. Gentlemen of the jury, look at her well. Take this away from her and she has no reason to go on living. We may see him as not much, but he's her reason for existence. Think on that, gentlemen. Think on that. Gentlemen of the jury, be merciful. For God's sake, be merciful. He is innocent of all charges brought against him. But let us say he was not. Let us for a moment say he was not. What justice would there be to take this life? Justice, gentlemen? Why, I would just as soon put a hog in the electric chair as this. I thank you, gentlemen, from the bottom of my heart for your kind patience. I have no more to say except this. We must live with our own conscience. Each and every one of us must live with his own conscience. The jury retired, and it returned a verdict after lunch, guilty of robbery and murder in the 1st degree. The judge commended the 12 white men for reaching a quick and just verdict. This was Friday. He would pass sentence on Monday. 10 o'clock on Monday. Miss Emma and my aunt sat in the same seats they had occupied on Friday. Reverend Mose Ambrose, the pastor of their church, was with them. He and my aunt sat on either side of Miss Emma. The judge, a short, red-faced man with snow-white hair and thick black eyebrows, asked Jefferson if he had anything to say before the sentencing. My aunt said that Jefferson was looking down at the floor and shook his head. The judge told Jefferson that he had been found guilty of the charges brought against him, and that the judge saw no reason that he should not pay for the part he played in this horrible crime. Death by electrocution. The governor would set the date. Chapter 2. When I came home from school that afternoon, I saw my aunt and Miss Emma sitting at the table in the kitchen. I was sorry now that I had come directly home, because Miss Emma was the last person I wanted to see. Just like everyone else in the quarter, I knew what the sentence was going to be, and I didn't want to have to look into her face. I hurried to my room with the satchel of papers that I had brought from school to work on that night. After laying the satchel on the table that I used as a desk, I sat down on the bed as quietly as I could. Neither my aunt nor Miss Emma had seen me come in, but they knew it was the time of day for me to be there. I tried to think of a way to make a quick appearance in the kitchen for courtesy's sake and then leave. I didn't want to look into that face any more than I had to. It was late October, and though I wore a wool shirt under my jacket, I was a little cold. I thought how nice it would be to sit inside the Rainbow Club in Bayonne. I had a lot of work to do, but I didn't feel like being here, not as long as Miss Emma was in the house. I couldn't hear a sound from the kitchen. I wondered if I could sneak out of the house before my aunt saw me. I got up from the bed, and I was near the door when I heard footsteps in her bedroom. I hurried back to the table and took some papers out of the satchel. When she came into my room, I had sat down at the table and was pretending to read. She stood looking at me. "Ain't you going to speak to Miss Emma?" she said. "I was going to. I was just looking over some papers." "She won't talk to you." "What about?" I asked. "She can tell you." "I have to go to Bayonne, Tant Lou," I said. "Something for the school." "I'm sure this won't take all day." "The store closes at 5, Tant Lou," I said. "It's almost 4 now." "You can spare a few minutes," my aunt said. "Especially today." She didn't say any more. She didn't have to. She was sure I knew what had happened. We looked at each other a moment. Then I looked down at the student's paper that I had taken from the satchel. The 4th grade writing was nearly illegible, but even if it had been typed, I would not have been able to concentrate long enough to read it. My aunt, standing back watching me, knew I was not reading. I pushed the papers away and followed her through her room back into the kitchen. Miss Emma sat at the kitchen table staring out into the yard. I started to speak to her, but I wasn't sure that she even knew I was there. "Sit down, Grant," my aunt said. "I can stand, Tant Lou." "Sit down," she said. She sat down first, next to Miss Emma, so that I would have to sit opposite both of them. In this way they could look at me at the same time, or take turns. "How are you, Miss Emma?" I said. "Making out," she said. She stared out into the yard. My aunt looked down at the table, and I waited, afraid to even think what Miss Emma might want to speak to me about. Miss Emma was in her early or mid-70s. My aunt was in her 70s, and I figured they were pretty much the same age. Miss Emma's hair was gray and combed up and pinned on top. I had noticed her floppy brown felt hat and her overcoat on my aunt's bed on her way back into the kitchen. Her name was Emma Glenn, but no one except her closest friends and the white people on the river ever called her anything but Miss Emma. Her husband, who was dead now, had called her Miss Emma, and she had called him Mr. Oscar, and that is how we on the plantation had grown up addressing them, except for Jefferson. He called her Nannin, and he had called Mr. Oscar Perrin, godmother and godfather. Miss Emma continued to stare into the yard, but I was sure she was not seeing anything out there. There was nothing out there to see but the jimson weeds and crabgrass and the rows of cane that ran parallel to the yard and about 100 feet away from the kitchen where we sat. Miss Emma was not seeing any of that. She was remembering. She was thinking. She was not seeing. "Called him a hog." She said that, and it was quiet again. My aunt looked at me, then back down at the table. I waited. "I know he was just trying to get him off, but they didn't pay that no mind. Still gave him death." She turned her head slowly and looked directly at me. Her large, dark face showed all the pain she had gone through this day, this past weekend. No, the pain I saw in that face came from many years past. "I don't want them to kill no hog," she said. "I want a man to go to that chair on his own 2 feet." I waited, not knowing what was coming, but she was finished talking. Now both she and my aunt looked at me as though I was supposed to figure out the rest of it. We stared at one another a few seconds before what they expected began to dawn on me. "Wait," I said, "wait." Neither one said a thing until I started to get up, and my aunt told me to sit back down. "Sit down for what?" I asked her. "Just sit down," she said. I settled back on the chair, but not all the way back. I was ready to get up at any moment. "He don't have to do it," Miss Emma said, looking beyond me again. "Do what?" I asked her. "You don't have to do it," she said again. It was dry, mechanical, unemotional, but I could tell by her face and by my aunt's face that they were not about to give up on what they had in mind. "What do you want me to do?" I asked her. "What can I do?" "It's only a matter of weeks, a couple of months, maybe. What can I do that you haven't done the past 21 years? "You the teacher," she said. "Yes, I'm the teacher," I said. "And I teach what the white folks around here tell me to teach, reading, writing, and arithmetic. They never told me how to keep a black boy out of a liquor store." "You watch your tongue, sir," my aunt said. I sat back in the chair and looked at both of them. They sat there like boulders, their bodies, their minds, immovable. "He don't have to," Miss Emma said again. "He gon' do it," my aunt said. "Oh," I said. "You gon' do it," she said. "We goin' up there and talk to Mr. Henri." "Talk to Henri Pichot for what?" I asked her. "So you have the right to visit Jefferson." "What's Henri Pichot got to do with this? His brother-in-law is the sheriff, ain't he?" I waited for her to say more, but she did not. I got up from the table. "Where you think you going?" Tant Lou asked me. "To Bayonne, where I can breathe," I said. "I can't breathe here." "You ain't going to no Bayonne till you go up the quarter," she said. "You gon' see Mr. Henri with me and Emma there." I had walked away, but now I came back and leaned over the table toward both of them. "Tant Lou, Miss Emma, Jefferson is dead. It's only a matter of weeks, maybe a couple of months, but he's already dead. The past 21 years, we've done all we could for Jefferson. He's dead now, and I can't raise the dead. All I can do is try to keep the others from ending up like this. But he's gone from us. There's nothing I can do anymore, nothing any of us can do anymore." "You're going with us up the quarter," my aunt said, as though I hadn't said a word. "You're going up there with us, Grant, or you don't sleep in this house tonight." I stood back from the table and looked at both of them. I clamped my jaw so tight the veins in my neck felt as if they would burst. I wanted to scream at my aunt. I was screaming inside. I had told her many, many times how much I hated this place, and all I wanted to do was get away. I had told her I was no teacher. I hated teaching, and I was just running in place here. But she had not heard me before, and I knew that no matter how loud I screamed, she would not hear me now. "I'm getting my coat, and I'll be ready to go," she said. "Emma?" Chapter 3. My gray 46 Ford was parked in front of the house. Tant Lou, in her black overcoat and black rimless hat, and Miss Emma, in her brown coat with the rabbit fur around the collar and sleeves, and her floppy brown felt hat, followed me out to the car and stood back until I had opened the door for them. Not only was I going up to Henri Pichot's house against my will, but I had to perform all the courtesies of chauffeur as well. After they had settled in the back seat, filling it completely, I slammed the door and went around to the other side and got in. I could feel my aunt's eyes on the back of my neck for shutting the door as I did. Miss Emma probably would have looked at me the same way, but her mind was on other things. As I drove by the church where I taught school, I thought about all the work I had to do, and I reminded myself that I had seen one of the men on the plantation about getting a load of firewood for the heater. I tried to remember who had brought up the last wagon load of wood. 15 or 20 families sent their children to the school, and I always made it a point, they expected it of me, to ask them to do something for the school during the 6-month session. I would ask one of the older children to tell me who had brought in the last load of wood. I stopped at the side gate to Henri Pachot's large white and gray antebellum house. When my aunt started to get out of the car to open the gate for me, I told her to keep her seat because I had nothing to do all that day but serve. I felt her eyes on the back of my neck again, then on the side of my face as I pushed open the gate, and on me directly as I came back to the car. After driving into the yard, I had to get out again to shut the gate. Since the side entrance led from the quarter to the house, Henri Pachot never used this gate. Only tractors, wagons, and trucks used this entrance, and over the many years they had cut just as many ruts across the yard. I must have hit every one of them, driving up to the house. My aunt never said a thing, but I could feel her eyes on the back of my neck. I was not aiming for the ruts, but I wasn't avoiding them either. I could hear them bouncing on the back seat, but they never said a word. After parking under one of the great live oaks not far from the back door, I turned around to look at my aunt. "Am I supposed to go in there too?" She looked at me, but she didn't answer me. She thought I had hit those ruts on purpose. "It was you who said you never wanted me to go through that back door ever again." "Do I have to keep reminding you, Grant? This ain't just another day." "He don't have to go," Miss Emma said for about the 100th time. She was looking at me but not seeing me, and not meaning what she was saying either. "He's going," my aunt said. She was definitely seeing me. "Mr. Henri won't come to him." "Oh yes, I keep forgetting that," I said. "Mr. Henri won't come to me." After a minute of grunting and straining, they were able to get out of the car. I followed them into the inner yard, up the stairs to the back door. The maid, Inez Lane, had seen us come into the yard, and she opened the door for us. Inez was in her early 40s, I suppose. She wore a white dress, white shoes, a blue gingham apron, and a kerchief on her head. She had a dark mole on her left cheek. She nodded to my aunt and me and spoke to Miss Emma. "I heard," she said. "I would like to speak to Mr. Henri if he's home," Miss Emma said. "Talking to Mr. Lewis in the library," Inez said. "Like to speak to him if he don't mind," Miss Emma said. Inez nodded and left us. I looked around the kitchen. I had come into this kitchen many times as a small child, to bring in wood for the stove, to bring in a chicken I had caught and killed, eggs I had found in the grass, and figs, pears, and pecans I had gathered from the trees in the yard. Miss Emma was the cook up here then. She wore the white dress and white shoes and the kerchief around her head. She had been here long before I was born, probably when my mother and father were children. She had cooked for the old Pachots, the parents of Henri Pachot. She had cooked for Henri and his brother and sister, as well as for his nieces and nephews. He did not have any children of his own. She cooked. She ran the house. My aunt washed and ironed, and I ran through the yard to get the things they needed to cook or cook with. As a child growing up on this plantation, I could not imagine this place, this house, existing without the two of them here. But before I left for the university, my aunt sat me down at the table in our kitchen and said to me, "Me and Emma can make out all right without you coming through that back door ever again." I had not come through that back door once since leaving for the university, 10 years before. I had been teaching on the place going on 6 years, and I had not been in Pachot's yard, let alone gone up the back stairs or through that back door. I saw both my aunt and Miss Emma looking around the kitchen. Some things had changed since they left, others had not. The big black iron pot still hung against the wall, but the wood-burning oven that I had known and that they had known had been exchanged for a gas range, and a big white refrigerator had taken the place of a smaller icebox. The war had changed all that. After so many of the young colored men had gone into military service or left the plantation, there was no one to chop the wood and haul the ice. And when they left, so did the old people, my aunt and Miss Emma. I did not hear Inez knock on the library door or hear her call, but I did hear Henri Pachot's voice. Yes, Inez, what is it? Then a moment later, who? And a moment after that, did she say what she wanted? And later, go back there and ask her what she wants. Inez came back into the kitchen. Just tell him I'd like to speak to him, Miss Emma said. It's important. Inez started back up the hall, but Henri Pachot had already left the library. He was a medium-sized man of medium weight. He wore a gray suit, a white shirt, and a gray and white striped tie. He could have been in his mid-60s. His hair was white and long. He held a drink. Louis Ragon, who followed him into the kitchen, was taller, heavier, and maybe a year or two younger. He wore a black pinstriped suit, and he also held a drink. Louis Ragon's people owned a bank in St. Adrien, a small town about 15 miles west of Henri Pachot's plantation. Mr. Henri, Mr. Louis, Miss Emma spoke to them. My aunt nodded. I didn't. I stood back near the door. What can I do for you, Emma? Pachot asked her. He seemed annoyed that he had been disturbed while he had company. I won't ask you a favor, Mr. Henri, Miss Emma said. He drank from his glass and looked at her. It's Jefferson, she said. Yes, I heard, he said, and waited. I won't ask you a favor. I can't change what has been handed down by the court, he said. I spoke up before the trial. I can't say any more. Yes, sir, she said, but that's not what I come to ask you for. I come to ask you something else. Miss Emma looked tired. She was tired. She wanted to sit down at the table, but no one had offered her a chair. My aunt put her arm around her shoulders to comfort her and to help her stand. I looked at the two white men, who raised their glasses. Henri Pachot finished his drink and stuck out his hand. Inez knew what it meant, and she came forward to get the empty glass. Then she turned to Louis Ragon, who had stuck out his glass, empty of everything except 2 or 3 small cubes of ice. She took the glasses to a liquor counter to refresh the drinks. They called my boy a hog, Mr. Henri, Miss Emma said. I didn't raise no hog, and I don't want no hog to go set in that chair. I want a man to go set in that chair, Mr. Henri. He looked at her, but he didn't say anything. He was waiting for his drink. I'm old, Mr. Henri, she went on. Jefferson gonna need me, but I'm too old to be going up there. My heart won't take it. I want you talk to Sheriff for me. I want somebody else take my place. That's up to you and Mr. Sam, isn't it? Pachot said, and he took the drink off the tray that Inez held before him. I need you speak for me, Mr. Henri, Miss Emma said. I want the teacher visit my boy. I want the teacher make him know he's not a hog. He's a man. I want him know that before he go to that chair, Mr. Henri. Henri Pachot glanced at me, then looked back at her. I done a lot for this family and this place, Mr. Henri, she said. All I'm asking you, talk to the sheriff for me. I done a lot for this family over the years. I can't promise anything, he said, and sipped his drink. You can speak to your brother-in-law. And say what? I want the teacher talk to my boy for me. He looked over her head at me, standing back by the door. I was too educated for Henri Pachot. He had no use for me at all anymore. But just as Miss Emma had given so much of herself to that family, so had my aunt. So Henri Pachot, who cared nothing in the world for me, tolerated me because of my aunt. And what do you plan to do? He asked me. I shook my head. I have no idea. He stared at me, and I realized that I had not answered him in the proper manner. Sir, I added, you think you can change him from a hog to a man in the little time he's got left? I have no idea, sir, I said. But you're willing to try if I can get Mr. Sam to let you go up there? That's what she wants, sir. But you didn't put her up to this. No, sir, I did not, I said. He was finished talking to me. Now he wanted me to look away. I lowered my eyes. When I raised my head, I saw his eyes on her again. I would forget all this if I were you, he said. Let Mose visit him and keep it at that. Reverend Mose will visit him, Miss Emma said. But no, sir, I won't keep it at that. At this point, I would be more concerned about his soul if I were you, Henri said. Yes, sir, I'm concerned for his soul, Mr. Henri, Miss Emma said. I'm concerned for his soul. But I want him be a man, too, when he go to that chair. Louis Ragon, standing next to Henri Pichot, held his drink without drinking. He could not believe what he was hearing. Henri Pichot looked at me again. He was sure I had put her up to this. I shifted my eyes, and I didn't look in his direction until I heard him speaking to her. Go on home, forget all this foolishness, he told her. You have done all you could to raise him. Let the law have him now. The law got him, Mr. Henri, Miss Emma said, and they gon' kill him. But let them kill a man. Let the teacher go to him, Mr. Henri. I done a lot for this family over the years. I know what you've done for this family over the years, he told her. And I also know what he did, or have you forgotten that? I ain't forgotten nothing, Mr. Henri, she said. I know what they say he did. He did it, Henri said, leaving no doubt in his mind. I spoke for him because of you, but all the time I knew he did it. If you say so, Mr. Henri, I'll say so, he said. That's not what I come up here for, Mr. Henri, Miss Emma said to him. I'm not begging for his life no more. That's over. I just won't see him die like a man. This family owe me that much, Mr. Henri, and I want it. I want somebody to do something for me one time before I close my eyes. Somebody got to do something for me one time before I close my eyes, Mr. Henri. Please, sir. From where I stood, back by the door, I could see my aunt tightening her grip around Miss Emma's shoulders to give her comfort. I'll speak to him, Henri said, but it's up to him, not me. Tell him what I done for this family, Mr. Henri. Tell him to ask his wife all I done for his family over the years. I said I would speak to him, Henri said, obviously becoming more and more impatient with her. When? She asked. Henri Pichot had started to raise his glass because for him the conversation was over. But when Miss Emma spoke again, his hand stopped inches away from his mouth and he lowered the glass. What? When? Whenever I see him, that's when, he said. Now, if you don't mind, I have a guest. He drank and turned away. Mr. Henri, Miss Emma called him, but he kept walking. I'll be up here again tomorrow, Mr. Henri. I'll be on my knees next time you see me, Mr. Henri. But she was speaking to empty space. Henri Pichot and Louis Ragon were already in the library. Miss Emma continued to stare up the hall for a moment. Then she and my aunt turned away, and I held the door open for them to go outside. The sun had gone down, and it was getting colder. Chapter 4. I took them back down the quarter. When I stopped in front of Miss Emma's house, my aunt got out of the car with her. I'm going to Bayonne, I told my aunt. She had not shut the door yet. I'll be home to cook in a little while, she said. I'll eat in town, I told her. Tante Lou held the door while she stood there looking at me. Nothing could have hurt her more when I said I was not going to eat her food. I was supposed to eat soon after she had cooked, and if I was not at home, I was supposed to eat as soon as I came in. She looked at me without saying anything else. Then she closed the door quietly and followed Miss Emma into the yard. I turned the car around and started up the quarter again. There was not a single telephone in the quarter, not a public telephone anywhere that I could use before reaching Bayonne, and Bayonne was 13 miles away. After leaving the quarter, I drove down a graveled road for about 2 miles, then along a paved road beside the St. Charles River for another 10 miles. There were houses and big live oak and pecan trees on either side of the road, but not as many on the riverbank side. There, instead of houses and trees, there were fishing wharves, boat docks, nightclubs, and restaurants for whites. There were 1 or 2 nightclubs for colored, but they were not very good. As I drove along the river, I thought about all the schoolwork that I should have been doing at home, but I knew that after being around Miss Emma and Henri Pichot the past hour, I would not have been able to concentrate on my work. I needed to be with someone. I needed to be with Vivian. Bayonne was a small town of about 6,000, approximately 3,500 whites, approximately 2,500 colored. It was the parish seat for St. Raphael. The courthouse was there, so was the jail. There was a Catholic church uptown for whites, a Catholic church back of town for colored. There was a white movie theater uptown, a colored movie theater back of town. There were 2 elementary schools uptown, one Catholic, one public, for whites, and the same back of town for colored. Bayonne's major industries were a cement plant, a sawmill, and a slaughterhouse, mostly for hogs. There was only one main street in Bayonne, and it ran along the St. Charles River. The department stores, the bank, the 2 or 3 dentists and doctors and attorneys' offices were mostly on this street, which made up less than half a dozen blocks. After entering the town, which was marked by the movie theater for whites on the riverbank side of the road, I had to drive another 2 or 3 blocks before turning down an unlit road, which led back of town to the colored section. Once I crossed the railroad tracks, I could see the Rainbow Club with its green, yellow, and red-arched neon lights. Several cars were parked before the door. One of them, a big white new '48 Cadillac, belonging to Joe Claiborne, who owned the place. A man and a woman came through the door as I got out of my car to go inside. There were probably a dozen people in the place, half of them at the bar, the rest of them sitting at tables with white tablecloths. I spoke to Joe Claiborne and went through a side door into the cafe to use the telephone. The tables in the cafe had checkered red and white tablecloths. Thelma Claiborne was behind the counter. Thelma ran the cafe and her husband Joe ran the bar. I asked her what she had for supper. "Smothered chicken, smothered beefsteaks, shrimp stew," she said. There was only one other person in the cafe, and he sat at the counter eating the stewed shrimps. "Shrimps any good?" I asked Thelma. "All my food's good," she said. "Shrimps," I told her. While Thelma dished up my food, I went to the telephone in the corner by the toilet. It took Vivian a while to answer, and she didn't sound too happy about it. "Did I get you at a bad time?" I asked her. "Getting these children something to eat," she said. "Where are you?" "The Rainbow Club." "Tonight?" "I need to see you, baby. I need to talk," I said. "Something the matter? I just need to talk to you, baby, that's all." "You want to come over here? I can fix you a sandwich." "No, I'm going to eat here at the cafe." "I'll see if I can get Dora," she said. "If I can't, you'll have to come over here. I can't leave the children alone." "I understand." Thelma had the stewed shrimps, a green salad of lettuce, tomato, and cucumber, a piece of cornbread, and a glass of water on the counter waiting for me. "Anything else to go with that?" she asked. "This'll do." "Here or a table?" she asked. "The counter is good." "What you doing in town on Monday?" she asked. "Calling Miss Fine Brown?" I nodded. "Figures," Thelma said and smiled. Thelma's mouth was full of gold teeth, solid gold as well as gold-crowned. She also wore perfume that was strong enough to keep you a good distance away from her. I figured that's where most of their money went, on those gold teeth, that perfume, and payment on the new white Cadillac that Joe had parked before the door. But they were good people, both of them. When I was broke, I could always get a meal and pay later, and the same went for the bar. I talked with Thelma a while after I finished eating, then I paid her and went back to the other side. "Usual?" Claiborne asked me. He knew what I drank, but he would always ask. I nodded. "What you doing here on Monday?" he asked while pouring me a brandy. "I needed a drink," I said. "Sure," he said. He poured a glass of ice water and set it on the bar beside the brandy. "I think I know now," he said. Car lights had just flashed upon the front of the club, and I could hear the tires on the crushed seashells just right of the door, and sure enough it was Vivian, and the men at the bar looked around at her when she came in. She was quite tall, 5'7", 5'8", and she wore a green wool sweater and a green and brown plaid skirt, and both fit her very well. She had soft, light brown skin and high cheekbones and greenish-brown eyes, and her nostrils and lips showed some thickness, but not much. Her hair was long and black, and she kept it twisted into a bun and pinned at the back of her head. Vivian Baptiste was a beautiful woman, and she knew it, but she didn't flaunt it. It was just there. She came up to me, and a couple of the other men at the bar nodded and spoke to her. One tipped his hat and called her Miss Lady. "You made it," I said. "I got Dora." "Usual?" Claiborne asked her. She nodded toward my drink. "Shirley can bring it to your table," Claiborne said. "It won't tire her out, I hope." Claiborne grunted at me. It was a slow night. The few people at the bar were holding on to their glasses and not buying any more. Shirley, the waitress, was sitting on a bar stool at the far end, and she had not moved once since I had been there. Vivian and I went to a table far over into the corner where we could be alone. "I'm glad you came," I said, and kissed her. Shirley brought the drinks and set them before us on paper napkins. Before leaving, she looked at me out of the corner of her eye to let me know she didn't like my remark at the bar. Vivian and I touched glasses and drank. "What is the matter, Grant?" she asked. I just had to see her. "Is something the matter?" "When was the last time I told you I loved you?" "A second ago." "I should say it more often," I said. "What is the matter, Grant?" she asked me again. "You want to leave from here tonight?" I asked her. "You want to go home and pack your clothes and get the children and leave from here tonight?" She looked at me as though she was trying to figure out whether I was serious or not. "No," she said. "Why not?" I asked her. "Because the whole thing is just too crazy," she said. "People do it all the time. Just pack up and leave." "Some people can, but we can't," she said. "We're teachers, and we have a commitment." "You hit the nail on the head there, lady. Commitment. Commitment to what? To live and die in this hellhole when we can leave and live like other people?" "How much have you had to drink, Grant?" "A whole fucking barrel of commitment," I said, and raised my glass. "Do you want me to leave, Grant?" she asked. "You know I don't like it when you talk like that." "No, I don't want you to leave. Please don't leave me," I told her. She reached over and touched my hand. Then she began to rub the knuckles with her fingers. "I need to go someplace where I can feel I'm living," I said. "I don't want to spend the rest of my life teaching school in a plantation church. I want to be with you, someplace where we could have a choice of things to do. I don't feel alive here. I'm not living here. I know we can do better someplace else." "I'm still married," Vivian said. "A separation is not a divorce. I can't go anywhere until all of this is over with." "That's not what's keeping you here. Even after the divorce, you'll still feel committed," I said. "And you, Grant?" "I'm tired of feeling committed." "Then why haven't you gone?" "Because of you." "That's not true, Grant, and you know it," she said. "We met only 3 years ago. I was still married, pregnant with my second child. You told me then how much you always wanted to get away, and you did once. You remember that? You went to California to visit your mother and father, but you wouldn't stay. You couldn't stay. You had to come back. Why did you come back, Grant? Why?" "I want to go now, and I want you to go with me." "I'm still married, Grant." "After the divorce?" She nodded. "After the divorce, I'll do whatever you want me to do as long as you're responsible for what you do. In other words, if I fail, I would have to blame myself the rest of my life for trying. Is that it?" "I'll leave all that up to you, Grant, if you still want me after the divorce." "I'll always want you," I said, and touched her hand. "And if you don't know that by now, I don't know what you do know about me." A couple from one of the other tables had gotten up and chosen a record on the jukebox. It was blues, the tempo slow, and the two people danced close together. I needed Vivian closer to me than she was now, and I asked her if she wanted to dance. We left the table, and I took her in my arms, and I could feel her breasts through the sweater, and I could feel her thighs through that plaid skirt, and now I felt very good. We danced for a while. I didn't want to say it, but I had to say it. "They gave him death," I said. She and I had talked about it on the weekend, and I did not want to talk about it now, or even think about it now. but it was the only thing that stayed on my mind. I could feel her body go tense against me. We danced a while. They want me to visit him. That would be nice, Grant. They want me to make him a man before he dies. She stopped dancing, and she stood back to look at me. Her face was twisted into a painful, questioning frown. The public defender trying to get him off called him a dumb animal, I told her. He said it would be like tying a hog down into that chair and executing him, an animal that didn't know what any of it was all about. The jury, 12 white men, good and true, still sentenced him to death. Now his godmother wants me to visit him and make him know, prove to these white men, that he's not a hog, that he's a man. I'm supposed to make him a man. Who am I? God? The record ended, and we went back to our table. I still don't know if the sheriff will even let me visit him. And suppose he did. What then? What do I say to him? Do I know what a man is? Do I know how a man is supposed to die? I'm still trying to find out how a man should live. Am I supposed to tell someone how to die who has never lived? Vivian lowered her head. Suppose I was allowed to visit him, and suppose I reached him and made him realize that he was as much a man as any other man. Then what? He's still going to die. The next day, the next week, the next month? So what will I have accomplished? What will I have done? Why not let the hog die without knowing anything? Vivian raised her head to look at me, and she was crying. I took one of her hands in both of mine. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do this to you. I don't want to do this to you. I just didn't know where else to turn. I want you to come to me, Grant, she said. I want you to always come to me. Shirley walked over to the table to pick up our empty glasses. Y'all want anything more? She asked. Another round, I told her. She left. I want you to go up there, Vivian said. They make those decisions, sweetheart, I don't. If they say yes, I want you to go for me. For you? For us, Grant. I looked at her, and she looked back at me. She had meant what she said. I don't know if I can take it. I really don't. I know you can. I'll need you every moment. I'll be here. Shirley came back with the drinks and set them on clean, dry paper napkins. She looked at me again that same way to let me know she didn't like my remark at the bar earlier. Shirley is still mad, Vivian said after she had gone. I'll leave her a good tip, I said. Vivian raised her glass to me and smiled. You have the most beautiful smile, I said. She smiled again. What are you doing this weekend? I asked her. Homework and housework, what else? Would you like to go to Baton Rouge one night? Friday or Saturday? I'll pay Dora. Friday sounds good, she said. We had friends in Baton Rouge who knew about her pending divorce and knew about my aunt, and they let us stay a while at their place while they went out to a bar. Sometimes we would join them at the bar later. Other times we would just leave the key in an envelope with a thank you note. But we were both getting very tired of that. We touched glasses and finished our drinks. Then we left. Chapter 5. We pledged allegiance to the flag. The flag hung limp from a 10-foot bamboo pole in the corner of the white picket fence that surrounded the church. Beyond the flag, I could see smoke rising from the chimneys in the quarter, and beyond the houses and the chimneys, I could hear the tractors harvesting sugarcane in the fields. The sky was ashy gray, and the air chilly enough for a sweater. I told the children to go inside and began their Bible verses. After listening to one or two of the verses, I tuned out the rest of them. I had heard them all many times. In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Let not your heart be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many mansions. Jesus wept, and on and on and on. I had listened to them almost 6 years, and I knew who would say what, just as I knew what each child would wear to school and who would or would not know his or her lesson. I knew, too, which of them would do something for themselves and which of them never would, regardless of what I did. So each day I listened for a moment, then turned it off and planned the rest of the day. My classroom was the church. My classes ranged from primer to 6th grade, my pupils from 6 years old to 13 and 14. My desk was a table, used as a collection table by the church on Sundays, and also used for the service of the Holy Sacrament on the 4th Sunday of each month. My students' desks were the benches upon which their parents and grandparents sat during church meeting. The students either got down on their knees and used the benches as desks to write upon, or used the backs of their books upon their laps to write out their assignments. Ventilation into the church was by way of the 4 windows on either side, and from the front and back doors. Our heat came from a wood-burning stove in the center of the church. There was a blackboard on the back wall and another on the right side wall. Behind my desk was the pulpit and the altar. There were 3 pictures on the wall behind the altar. One was a head and chest black and white photo of the minister in a dark suit, white shirt, and dark tie. The other 2 pictures were color prints of Jesus, the Last Supper, and Christ knocking on a door. This was my school. I was supposed to teach 6 months out of the year, but actually I taught only 5.5 months, from late October to the middle of April, when the children were not needed in the field. I assigned 3 of my 6th grade students to teach the primer, 1st, and 2nd grades, while I taught 3rd and 4th. Only by assigning the upper grade students to teach the lower grades was it possible to reach all the students every day. I devoted the last 2 hours in the afternoon to the 5th and 6th grades. While the classes separated and moved to their respective areas, I asked the 3rd and 4th graders to go to the back of the church to work on the blackboards. The 3rd grade class would do arithmetic on the board on the back wall, and the 4th graders would write sentences on the board on the right side wall. I moved from one blackboard to the other with my yard-long Westcott ruler. I still felt bad about the problem I was having at home with my aunt. The night before, when I returned from Bayonne, I had gone to her room to say good night, but she pretended to be asleep, just to avoid speaking to me. And this morning, when I passed her on my way into the kitchen, she said over her shoulder, "Food there if you want it, or you can go back where you had supper last night." Breakfast was 2 fried eggs, grits, a piece of salt pork, and a biscuit. I ate at the kitchen table, looking across the yard. The crabgrass was wet from the night's heavy dew. I looked back over my shoulder a couple of times, but I couldn't hear my aunt anywhere in the house. After I finished eating, I washed my plate in the pan of soap water that she had left on the shelf in the kitchen window. I tried once more to speak to her before leaving for school, but to avoid me this time she pretended to make up her bed, which I knew she had already done 2 hours earlier. At 8:45 I left the house. She had gone out into the garden. Every little thing was irritating me. I caught one of the students trying to figure out a simple multiplication table on his fingers, and I slashed him hard across the butt with the Westcott ruler. He jerked around too fast and looked at me too angrily for my liking. "Your hand," I said. He held out his right hand, palm up. He still held the piece of chalk. "Put that chalk down. I can't afford to break it." He passed the piece of chalk to his left hand and held out the right hand to me again. I brought the Westcott down into his palm. "You figure things out with your brains, not with your fingers," I told him. "Yes, sir, Mr. Wiggins." He turned back to the board and stared at the problem at least half a minute. It was cold in the back of the church, but standing 2 feet away from the boy, I could see that he was sweating. He raised his left hand up to his eyes to wipe away tears. Then he stared at the problem again. "Well, others have to work too, you know." "Yes, sir, Mr. Wiggins." The back of his neck shone with sweat. He wiped his eyes again. Then he wrote down an answer, large, awkward, and, of course, incorrect. "You used enough chalk for 5 times that many problems," I told him. Where do you think we're going to get more chalk when this runs out? He didn't answer. Well, I said. I don't know, Mr. Wiggins, he said, staring at the board, not daring to look at me. I'd have to buy it, I said. The school board doesn't give it away. They already gave me what they said was enough for the year. They're not giving us any more. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Yes, Mr. Wiggins. I jerked the piece of chalk out of his hand, corrected the problem, passed the piece of chalk on to another student, and walked away. On the sideboard, one of the girls, wearing a gray dress and a black sweater, unpolished brown loafers and unmatching brown stockings, her head a forest of half a dozen 2-inch plaits, had written a sentence of 6 words with a downward slant of nearly a foot. And what is that supposed to be? I asked her. She was so terrified by my voice that she jerked around to face me, then staggered back against the board. This, she stuttered, while gesturing toward the board with the piece of chalk. That's a simple sentence, Mr. Wiggins. That's not a simple sentence, I told her. That's a slanted sentence. A simple sentence is written on a straight line. I reached for the piece of chalk, but in her fear of me, she continued to hold on to it, and I had to pry it out of her hand. I drew 3 straight lines from one end of the board to the other. Those are straight lines, I said. Do you notice the difference? She nodded her head while looking at me, not at the board. I erased the 3 lines as well as her slanted sentence. I want you to write me 6 simple sentences in straight lines, I said, and handed her the chalk. You have until the end of the period to do it. The rest of the class, take your seats. I left her standing there, trying to figure out where to begin. At the door, I turned back to look at the other classes. They all knew I was in a pretty rotten mood today, and they kept their heads down. I went out into the yard, slapping the Westcott ruler against my leg hard enough to sting it. The cool air felt good on my face, and after standing in the yard a while, I walked to the road. But there was nothing to see out there but a couple of automobiles, my gray Ford parked down the quarter in front of my aunt's house, and a car parked alongside the ditch farther up the quarter. Other than that, all there was to see were old gray weather-beaten houses, with smoke rising out of the chimneys and drifting across the corrugated tin roofs. Living and teaching on a plantation, you got to know the occupants of every house. And you knew who was home and who was not. I knew that the parents and the older brothers and sisters of the boy I had slashed on the butt with my ruler were out in the field, and that the old grandma, Aunt June, was at home cooking dinner for them to eat when they came in at noon. I could see the smoke rising from the kitchen chimney of the girl who stuttered, and I knew that she came from a family of 12, and that she had a pregnant older sister who was not allowed to come back to school but had to work in the field with all the others, and that she had an idiot brother and a tyrant father, and that the father beat the pregnant girl and any other member of the family, including the mother, but would never touch the idiot whom he showered with love. I could look at the smoke rising from each chimney, or I could look at the rusted tin roof of each house, and I could tell the lives that went on in each one of them. I went all the way to the back of the yard, where I used the boys' toilet. Then I returned to my classes, but instead of coming in through the front door as I had left, I entered through the back. Most of the students remembered the mood I was in and had their heads in their books. But one first grader had forgotten or didn't care, and he found time to play with a bug on the sleeve of his sweater. As I watched from the back door, he let the insect crawl an inch or 2 from his elbow toward his hand. Then he picked it up and returned it up his arm to let it start all over again. I looked at Irene Cole, my student teacher, to let her know not to warn him, and when I got in good striking distance of his nearly shaved head, I brought the Westcott down on his skull loud enough to send a sound throughout the church. He jumped, hollered, grabbed at the already swelling knot. 1 or 2 of the students near him giggled nervously, but most remembered the mood I was in and seemed petrified. The boy, with his hand cupped over the welt, was crying now. "Take that thing outside, get rid of it, and get back in here," I told him. He left, crying quietly, the little red bug sitting on top of his extended arm. So it's bug playing time, huh? I asked the rest of the class. You think that's why I'm here? So that you can play with bugs, huh? The boy came back and sat down. His hand was still cupped over his scalp, and he was still crying. The rest of you back to your seats, I ordered. They moved hurriedly, quietly, careful not to utter a word. Do you all know what is going on in Bayonne? I asked them back at my desk. Do you all know what is going to happen to someone just like you who sat right where you're sitting only a few years ago? All right, I'll tell you. They're going to kill him in Bayonne. They're going to sit him in a chair. They're going to tie him down with straps. They're going to connect wires to his head, to his wrists, to his legs, and they're going to shoot electricity through the wires into his body until he's dead. I looked across the room at them. Some stared back at me, others down at the floor, but they were all listening. They knew Jefferson was supposed to die in the electric chair, but they hadn't known how this would happen. It had not been explained to them so vividly before, and maybe not at all. I could see how painful it was for most of them to hear this, but I did not stop. Do you know what his Nanin wants me to do before they kill him? The public defender called him a hog, and she wants me to make him a man. Within the next few weeks, maybe a month, whatever the law allows, make him a man. Exactly what I'm trying to do here with you now, to make you responsible young men and young ladies. But you prefer to play with bugs, you refuse to study your arithmetic, and you prefer writing slanted sentences instead of straight ones. Does that make any sense? Well, does it? No one answered. Most averted their eyes. I noticed that the girl whom I had criticized at the blackboard had lowered her head and was crying. Estelle, leave the class if you can't control yourself, I ordered her. She shook her head, but she did not get up or look at me. I'm all right, Mr. Wiggins. But that's my cousin. I knew that Jefferson was her cousin, but I didn't apologize for what I had said, nor did I show any sympathy for her crying. Either leave the class or stop crying, I told her again. She wiped her eyes, but she did not look up. All right, the rest of the morning for studying, I told them, and you'd better study because I'm testing everybody this afternoon. At 2 o'clock, I was at the blackboard with my fifth graders when we heard a knocking on the front door. I told the boy nearest the door to see who it was and asked him to come in. The boy went to the door and came back alone. He said that it was Mr. Farrell Giroux, but Mr. Farrell didn't want to come in. I told the class to go on with their work, and I went to the door to see what he wanted. Farrell Giroux was a small, light brown man in his late 50s. He wore an old felt hat, a khaki suit, and worn work shoes. He was the yard man and all-around handyman for Henri Pichot. He fixed and sharpened tools for the big house, and he served as carpenter for the people in the quarter. He had made more benches, fixed more chairs and steps than you could number. He took off his hat as I approached him. He had known me all my life, and he knew my aunt and all my people before me. But since I had gone off to the university and returned as a teacher, he treated me with great respect. I went down the steps and into the yard. Professor, Mr. Farrell, he said it'd be all right if you come up by 5 this evening. Is this about Jefferson? I asked. Didn't tell me. Just said it'd be all right if you come up there about 5. Thank you, Mr. Farrell. My pleasure, Professor, he said. He put on his hat, and I noticed his eyes. He knew why Henri Pichot wanted me up there all right, but Henri Pichot had not thought it was necessary to tell him. At his age, he was still only a messenger to run errands. To learn anything, he had to attain it by stealth or through an innate sense of things around him. He nodded to me, knowing that I knew he knew why Henri Pichot wanted to see me, and he walked away, head down. Chapter 6. Inez was in the kitchen when I came up the back stairs, and she opened the door before I had a chance to knock. I could tell she had been crying. She had wiped the tears from her cheeks, but I could see the marks under her eyes. How are you, Inez? I'm making out, she said, not looking at me. You know why he sent for me? Mr. Sam coming here at 5. I glanced at my watch. It was 10 minutes to 5. Can I get you a cup of coffee? Inez asked. No thanks. You want to sit down? She still did not look at me. I'm all right. I don't mind standing. I remembered how my aunt and Miss Emma had stood the night before. I don't know, Inez said, shaking her head. I just don't know. Now Mr. Lewis in there trying to get a bet. A bet on what? She looked at me directly for the first time. She had large eyes, brown and kind. I could see traces of tears that she had tried wiping away. You can't get him ready to die? Henri Pachot didn't take that bet, did he? I left him in there talking. Mr. Lewis say he got a whole case of whiskey he can bet on. Henri Pachot, he ain't betting against you. He ain't betting on you neither. Smart man. Inez looked at me sadly. I didn't know if it was because of my cynicism or the task I had facing me. She went back to the stove. With a dish towel, she lifted the lid of one of the pots, and I could smell a strong scent of onion, bell pepper, and garlic. She raised the lids on 2 other pots, but still the odor of the onions, pepper, and garlic pervaded the room. Inez left the kitchen. I heard her knock on the library door, and I could hear her and Henri Pachot talking. Then she came back into the kitchen. How's Lou? She asked me. She's all right, I said. I left her there with Miss Emma. I thought about them sitting at the kitchen table at Miss Emma's house. I had gone home after school to drop off my satchel, and when I did not find my aunt at home, I figured she was keeping Miss Emma company. I found them at the kitchen table, shelling pecans into 2 big aluminum pans. I could see that neither my aunt nor Miss Emma had any intention of going up to Henri Pachot's house with me. But if you need me to hold your hand, I'll be glad to go, my aunt said. I don't want him doing nothing he don't want to do. Miss Emma repeated the old refrain I had heard about 100 times the day before. I didn't answer them. I was angry already, and I knew things would have just gotten worse if I had said anything else. I went back outside and got into my car and drove up to Pachot's. Now I looked at my watch again. It was 5:15. No Sam Guidry and no one else, except Inez, had come into the kitchen to say anything to me. Each time she returned from the library, Inez seemed more agitated. I knew she was feeling sorry for me. At 5:30, we heard people entering the house off the front gallery. Inez left the kitchen to meet them. She spoke to Edna Guidry, then to Sam Guidry, and to 1 or 2 other people. I could hear them talking as they came into the house. Inez returned to the kitchen with 2 empty glasses to be freshened. She added 4 glasses to her tray. She took that to the library and came back. I'm sure it won't be too long now, she said. She knew how I felt, and she was trying to encourage me. It was 5:45. At 6 o'clock, Edna Guidry came back in the kitchen. A tall woman in her early 50s. She had light brown hair, a narrow face, and gray eyes. She wore a shapeless black dress, gray stockings, and low-heeled black shoes. Well, Grant, how are you? She said, smiling and coming up to me with her hand out. She stopped a good distance back, and I had to lean forward to shake her hand, which was long and bony and cold from her glass. Why, Grant, she said, I just do declare, I haven't seen you in God knows how long. Been 2-3 years, I'm sure, wouldn't you say? About that long, Miss Edna, I said. God, yes, she said. Why, you're looking just as fine, like you're living the good life, doesn't he, Inez? He's looking just fine, Miss Edna, Inez said from the stove. Well, tell me all about yourself, Edna Guidry said to me. How have you been? No need to tell me. I can see you doing just fine. But how is Lou? Why doesn't she come to see me? It's been how long? Oh, I bet you it's been 8 months. And living so close. You tell Lou I say make you bring her to my house so we can sit down and talk. Lord have mercy, do. She turned from me to Inez. Mr. Henri says you may serve any time now, Inez. Yes, ma'am, Inez said. Edna turned back to me. Grant, please tell Emma how sorry I am about Jefferson. I would do it myself, but I'm just too broken up over this matter. I ran into Madame Gropay just the other day. Lord, how sad she looks, just dragging along. Poor old thing. I had to put my arms round her. Edna drank from a glass. Tell Emma I'm sorry. I'm sorry for both families. I hear you would like the privilege of visiting Jefferson. Yes, ma'am. Well, I'll leave all that up to you and the sheriff, she said. He'll talk to you after supper. She turned to Inez. Inez, is there anything that I may help you with? No, I got everything under control, Inez told her. Well, in that case, I may as well help myself to another quick shot. She poured about 2 ounces of bourbon into her glass and added ice cubes. After drinking half of it, she went back to the library. Inez dished up the food. She had cooked a pot roast with potatoes and carrots, onions, bell pepper, and garlic. She also had rice and mustard greens, green peas, and cornbread. She took the platters and bowls to the dining room. Can I fix you something? She asked me when she came back to the kitchen. No, thank you, I told her. I was hungry. I hadn't eaten anything but a sandwich since breakfast, but I would not eat at Henri Perchot's kitchen table. I had come through that back door against my will, and it seemed that he and the sheriff were doing everything they could to humiliate me even more by making me wait on them. Well, I had to put up with that because of those in the quarter, but I damn sure would not add hurt to injury by eating at his kitchen table. Inez went to the dining room and came back. They talking up there now about him, she said. Sheriff saying he don't like the idea at all, saying nobody can make that thing a man, saying might as well let him go like he is. I hope that's his final word, I said. It sure would relieve my mind. Why don't you sit down, Inez said. You'll feel better. I'd rather stand. You sure I can't fix you a little something to eat? No, thank you, Inez. She went and came back. It won't be long now, she said. They nearly through. Soon as I serve the coffee. You sure I can't get you a cup of coffee? No, thanks. I appreciate it, though. She poured coffee into 6 small white cups and took the coffee, sugar, and cream to the dining room on a silver tray. She came back. He asked me if you were still here, she said. I think he's gonna let you see him, but he say he's still against it. I'm sure it's Miss Edna making him do it. Well, all the time Miss Emma done spent with this family, that ain't asking too much. At 7:15, Inez cleared off the table in the dining room and brought the dishes into the kitchen. Then she took a bottle of brandy back with her. A half hour later, while she was putting away the dishes she had just finished washing, Sam Guidry, Henri Perchot, Louis Ragone, and another fat man came into the kitchen. I had been standing there nearly 2.5 hours. Sam Guidry was a tall man, well over 6 feet, and he was well tanned. His hair was dark brown, his sideburns and mustache showed some gray. His face was narrow, well-lined, and strong. His hands were large and hairy. He wore a brown suit and a tie. He usually wore a Stetson hat and cowboy boots. He had probably left the hat in the library or the dining room, but he had the boots on. The 4 white men split into pairs. Sam Guidry and Henri Perchot stood on one side of the table, while Louis Ragone and the fat man stood over by the dish cabinet. They had brought their drinks with them. Inez left the kitchen as soon as the white men came in. I tried to decide just how I should respond to them, whether I should act like the teacher that I was or like the nigger that I was supposed to be. I decided to wait and see how the conversation went. To show too much intelligence would have been an insult to them. To show a lack of intelligence would have been a greater insult to me. I decided to wait and see how the conversation would go. Been waiting long? Sam Guidry asked me. About 2.5 hours, sir, I said. I was supposed to say not long, and I was supposed to grin, but I didn't do either. The fat man glanced knowingly at Louis Ragone, but Louis Ragone was looking directly at me. I could see in their faces that they had talked all this over, and Sam Guidry had already made up his mind what he was going to do. What can I do for you? He asked. Louis Ragone and the fat man waited for my answer. I knew it didn't matter what I said, since Guidry had made up his mind. Henri Perchot, standing next to Guidry, looked more tired than he had the day before. He seemed more sympathetic. Maybe he had been thinking about all the services Miss Emma had provided for his family over the years. "It's about Jefferson, Sheriff Guidry," I said. I knew they had discussed it. Still, I had to go through the motions. His Nanan would like for me to visit him. "What for?" Guidry asked. They had discussed this too. I could tell from the way the fat man drank from his glass. I could see in his face that he was amused. So was Louis Ragon. I knew they were both betting against me. "She's old," I said. "She doesn't feel that she has the strength to come up there all the time." "She doesn't, huh?" Sam Guidry asked me. He emphasized doesn't. I was supposed to have said don't. I was being too smart. "Yes, sir," I said. "She doesn't feel that she can." I used the word doesn't again, but I did it intentionally this time. If he had said I was being too smart, and he didn't want me to come to that jail, my mind would definitely have been relieved. "What about that preacher in the quarter? Can he visit him?" I asked her the same thing. "You did, huh?" "Yes, sir." "And what did she say?" "She said there'll be time for the preacher." "She did, huh?" "Yes, sir." "So she feels that he has that much time for teacher and preacher." The fat man grunted. Louis Ragon's eyes showed that he was amused. Henri Pichot, next to Sam Guidry, looked uncomfortable. "What you plan on doing when you come up there?" "If I let you come up there," Guidry asked me. "I have no idea, sir," I told him. "You're not trying to play with me now, are you?" Guidry asked. "No, sir, I'm not, but I have no idea what I'll talk to him about." "I hear from people around here you want to make him a man. A man for what, at this time?" "She asked me to go to him, sir. Her idea, not mine." "That was not the question," Guidry said. "Make him a man for what?" "To die with some dignity, I suppose. I suppose that's what she wants." "You think that's a good idea?" "That's what she wants, sir." "What do you think?" "I would rather not have anything to do with it, sir. But that's what she wants." "So you think he ought to go just like he is?" "I don't know how he is, sir. Believe me, Mr. Guidry, if it was left up to me, I wouldn't have anything to do with it at all," I said. "You and I are in accord there," he said, "but my wife thinks different. Now, which one you think is right, me or her?" The fat man snorted. He thought Guidry had me. "I make it a habit never to get into family business, Mr. Guidry." The fat man didn't like that quick maneuver. I could see it in his face. "You're smart," Guidry said. "Maybe you're just a little too smart for your own good." I was quiet. I knew when to be quiet. "I don't like it," Guidry said, "and I want you to know I don't like it. Because I think the only thing you can do is just aggravate him, trying to put something in his head against his will. And I'd rather see a contented hog go to that chair than an aggravated hog. It would be better for everybody concerned. There ain't a thing you can put in that skull that ain't there already." I remained quiet. "You can come up there," Sam Guidry said. "But the first sign of aggravation, I'm calling it off. You understand?" "Yes, sir." "You have any questions?" he asked me. "Yes, sir. When can I see him?" "You can come any time you like. Not before 10 in the morning, not after 4 in the evening. Any other questions?" "Any idea how much time he has left?" "That's entirely up to the governor, not me," Guidry said. "But I wouldn't plan on a diploma, okay?" The fat man and Louis Ragon seemed impressed by the sheriff's questions and answers to me. Louis Ragon, who had light blue eyes, stared at me to make me look back at him, but I refused to pay him that courtesy. The fat man, drinking, rattled the ice cubes in his glass. Henri Pichot appeared to wish all this was over with. "Anything else?" Guidry asked me. "When can I start coming up there?" "Not for a couple of weeks," Guidry said. "Let him get used to it. Report to Chief Deputy Clark if I'm not around. Don't bring anything up there you don't want taken away from you. Knife, razor blade, anything made of glass. Not that I expect him to do anything, but you can never be sure. Anything else?" "No, sir, nothing else." Guidry nodded. "Good luck, but I think it's all just a waste of time." "Thank you, sir." I waited until they left the kitchen. Then I went out to my car and drove away. Chapter 7. Two things happened at the school during the weeks before I visited Jefferson in jail. The superintendent of schools made his annual visit, and we got our first load of wood for winter. We heard on Monday by Farrell Giroux, who had gotten the news from Henri Pichot, that the superintendent was going to visit us sometime during the week, but we didn't know what day or time. I told my students to take baths each morning and wear their best clothes to school. After the Pledge of Allegiance in the yard and the recitation of Bible verses inside the church, I would send a student back outside to look out for the superintendent. If the student saw a car, any car, turn off the highway down into the quarter, he or she was supposed to run inside and tell me. The superintendent didn't show up until Thursday. By then, we had had many false alarms. The minister of the church, who didn't live in the quarter, had made a couple of visits to church members. A doctor had come once. A midwife had visited a young woman twice. An insurance man had shown up. A bill collector from a furniture store had appeared. Henri Pichot had driven through the quarter at least once each day, and family and friends of people in the quarter had also visited. On Thursday, just before 2 o'clock, the boy I had watching for cars ran into the church. "Another one, Mr. Wiggins, another one." "All right," I said to the class. "Keep those books opened and look sharp." I passed my fingers over my shirt collar and checked the knot in my necktie. I felt my jacket to be sure both flaps were outside the pockets. I had 3 suits, navy blue, gray, and brown. I had on the blue one today. In the yard, I passed the tips of my shoes over the backs of my pant legs. Now I was ready to receive our guest. This time it was the superintendent. He stopped his car before the door of the church. A thick cloud of gray dust flew over the top of the car and down into the quarter. The superintendent was a short, fat man with a large red face and a double chin, and he needed all his energy to get out of the car. "Dr. Joseph," I said. Stifling," he said. I thought it was a little cool myself, but I figured that anyone as heavy as he was must have felt stifled all the time. He wheezed his way across the shallow ditch that separated the road from the churchyard. He looked up at me, but I could tell he didn't remember my name, though he had visited the school once each year since I had been teaching there. "Grant Wiggins," I said. "How are you, Higgins?" "Wiggins, sir," I said. "I'm fine." "Well, I'm not," he said. "All this running around, more schools to attend." Dr. Joseph visited the colored schools once a year, the white schools probably twice, once each semester. There were a dozen schools in the parish to visit, if that many. "We're honored that you took this time for us, sir." He grunted and looked around the yard. There was a good breeze coming in from the direction of the cane fields, and it wavered the flag on the pole in the yard. "Place looks about the same," Dr. Joseph said. "Things change very slowly around here, Dr. Joseph," I said. He said. I motioned for him to precede me into the church. He needed all his strength to go up the 3 wooden steps, and as he entered the doorway, I heard Irene Cole, the 6th grade student in charge, call out to the class, "Rise, shoulders back." I followed Dr. Joseph down the aisle, and on either side of us, the students from primer through 6th grade stood as still and as straight as soldiers for inspection. I nodded toward my desk for Dr. Joseph to take my chair. He grunted, which meant thanks, and pulled the chair farther from the desk before he sat down. He needed the extra distance for comfort. Irene was watching me all the time, and when I nodded to her, she called out to the class, "Seats," and the whole school sat as one. We had been rehearsing this morning and afternoon for the past 3 days. "Students, I'm sure you all know Dr. Joseph Morgan," I told them. "Dr. Joseph is our superintendent of schools here in St. Raphael Parish. He has taken time out of a very busy schedule to visit us for a few minutes. Please respond loudly, 'Thank you, Dr. Joseph,' which they did, loudly." Dr. Joseph acknowledged their greetings. Dr. Joseph, we're at your service, I said, and sat down on one of the benches against the wall. Dr. Joseph leaned back in the chair, and still his large stomach nearly touched the edge of the table. He looked over the classes from one side of the aisle to the other, as though he were trying to catch someone doing something improper. "Primer on your feet," he said. They stood up, 7 or 8 of them. Dr. Joseph looked them over for a moment. Then he told the little girl at the end to come forward. She took a deep breath and looked at the girl standing beside her before coming up to the desk. She was afraid, but she came up quickly and stood before the table with her little arms tight to her sides. She would not look up. "Nothing to be afraid of, child," Dr. Joseph said to her. "What is your name?" "Gloria Herbert," she said. "I can't hear you if you keep your head down," Dr. Joseph told her. She looked up, timidly. "Gloria Herbert." "That's a pretty name," Dr. Joseph said. "Hold out your hands." She must have thought she had said or done something wrong, because as she held her hands out across the table, palms up, I could see them trembling. "Turn them over," Dr. Joseph told her. She did. "Uh-huh," he said. "Relax." She did not know what he wanted her to do. "Lower your arms, child," Dr. Joseph said. She brought her arms back to her sides and lowered her eyes as well. "Did you say your Bible verse this morning, Gloria?" "Yes, sir, Dr. Joseph." "Well, what did you say?" he asked her. I said, "Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, Dr. Joseph." Dr. Joseph said. "Seems I've heard that one before. But you're a bright little girl. You tell your folks Dr. Joseph said they ought to be proud of you. Go back to your seat." "Thank you, Dr. Joseph," she said, bowing and turning away quickly. She smiled as she faced forward again, but no one else was smiling. "Primers, take your seats," Dr. Joseph said. "First graders, on your feet." And he called on the one boy in class who I wished had stayed home today. He was without doubt the worst child in the school. He came from a large family, 13, 14, 15, I don't know how many. And he had to fight for every crumb of food he got. At school he did the same. He fought if he played marbles. He fought if he played ball. He fought if he played hide and go seek. He fought if he played hide the switch. In class, he fought with those who sat in front of him, beside him, behind him. I had punished him as much during the last month as I had all the other children put together. Dr. Joseph asked his name, and he ran together 3 words even I couldn't understand. His name was Lewis Washington, Jr., but what he said didn't sound anything like that. "Your hands," Dr. Joseph told him. The hands had been cleaned an hour before, I was sure, because I had checked each pair when the students came in from dinner. But now the palms of those same hands were as black and grimy as if he had been pitching coal all day. "Did you pledge allegiance to the flag this morning?" Dr. Joseph asked him. "Yowza," he said. Not yes, sir, as I had told him 100 times to say. "Yowza." "Well," Dr. Joseph said. "Want me go stand outside and salute flag?" the boy asked. "You don't have to go outside," Dr. Joseph said. "You can show me in here." The boy raised his hand to his chest. "Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States, America. Which you stand, visibly, amen." Dr. Joseph grunted. Several students giggled. Dr. Joseph seemed quite satisfied. I would have to do a lot more work. For the next half hour it continued. Dr. Joseph would call on someone who looked half bright. Then he would call on someone whom he felt was just the opposite. In the upper grades, 4th, 5th, and 6th, he asked grammatical, mathematical, and geographical questions. And besides looking at hands, now he began inspecting teeth. "Open wide, say ah," and he would have the poor children spreading out their lips as far as they could while he peered into their mouths. At the university, I had read about slave masters who had done the same when buying new slaves, and I had read of cattlemen doing it when purchasing horses and cattle. At least Dr. Joseph had graduated to the level where he let the children spread out their own lips, rather than using some kind of crude metal instrument. I appreciated his humanitarianism. Finally, when he felt that he had inspected enough mouths and hands, he gave the school a 10-minute lecture on nutrition. Beans were good, he said. Not only just good, but very, very good. Beans, beans, beans. He must have said beans 100 times. Then he said fish and greens were good, and exercise was good. In other words, hard work was good for the young body. Picking cotton, gathering potatoes, pulling onions, working in the garden, all of that was good exercise for a growing boy or girl.
Higgins, I must compliment you. You have an excellent crop of students. An excellent crop, Higgins. You ought to be proud.
He had said the same thing the year before, and he had called me Higgins then too. And the year before that he had said the same thing, but he had called me Washington then. At least he was getting closer to my real name. "Rise," Irene called to the class. They came to their feet, their heads up, their arms clasped to their sides. But instead of feeling pride, I hated myself for drilling them as I had done. Dr. Joseph and I went down the aisle. Outside, he looked up at the flag waving on its bamboo pole in the corner of the fence. I thought for a moment the superintendent was about to salute it, but he was either too tired or too lazy to raise his hand.
"Doing a good job, Higgins," he said.
"I do the best I can with what I have to work with, Dr. Joseph," I said. "I don't have all the books I need. In some classes, I have 2 children studying out of 1 book. And even with that, some of the pages in the book are missing. I need more paper to write on. I need more chalk for the blackboards. I need more pencils. I even need a better heater."
"We're all in the same shape, Higgins,"
he said. I didn't answer him.
"I said we're all in the same shape, Higgins. The white schools just as much as the colored schools. We take what the state gives us, and we make the best of it."
"Many of the books I have to use are hand-me-downs from the white schools, Dr. Joseph," I said, "and they have missing pages. How can I—"
"Are you questioning me, Higgins?"
"No, sir, Dr. Joseph. I was just—"
"Thank you, Higgins."
He started to get back into his car. It was harder to do than getting out, because he was upset with me now.
"More drill on the flag, Higgins," he said,
through the rolled-down window.
"More emphasis on hygiene."
"Some of these children have never seen a toothbrush before coming to school, Dr. Joseph."
"Well, isn't that your job, Higgins?"
"Yes, sir, I suppose so. But then I would have to buy them."
"Can't they work?" he asked me. "Look at all the pecan trees."
He waved his hand toward the yards.
"I wager you can count 50 trees right here in the quarter. Back in the field, back in the pasture, you can count another 100, 200 trees. Get them off their lazy butts. They can make enough for a dozen toothbrushes in one evening."
"That money usually goes to helping the family, Dr. Joseph."
"Then you tell the family about health,"
he said, looking out of the rolled-down window to let me know that his visit was over.
"I have another school to visit. All this running around enough to give a man a hardtack."
He drove away. I stood there until he had turned his car around and started back up the quarter. I waved at him, but he did not wave back. Chapter 8. The week after the superintendent paid his visit to the school, we got our first load of wood for winter. 2 old men brought the wagon load about 11 o'clock that morning. We did not have a gate wide enough for the wagon to come through, so the men came into the yard next door to the church. One got down off the wagon to open the gate, and the other drove the wagon into the yard. I could not see them, but I could hear them. They were joking about the mules, the wood, and the weather. One of them said, "Don't let Bud hang us up in that ditch now. I don't feel like unloading all this wood way out here and got to put it on that wagon again." "She gon' pull," the other one said. "Hi there, Bird. Get them shoulders in there." I heard the wagon cross the ditch and enter the yard. "All right," I said to the class. "The first one who looks outside will spend an hour in the corner. They can do pretty well without you." The wagon came farther into the yard on the other side of the fence, passing the church windows. I could see the two mules, one big and red, the other small and dark brown with long droopy ears, pulling hard into the chains. Then I saw the long poles of wood stacked high upon the wagon, with one of the old men riding atop the wood while the other, the one who had opened the gate, walked alongside the wagon. They were still joking and laughing. "Lewis Washington, Jr., get back into that corner and face the wall."
"But, Mr. Wiggins, now you was looking out that window too now. I seen you."
"Just out of the corner of my eye," I said.
"Now I was just looking out the corner of my eye too, Mr. Wiggins."
"In that case, I won't punish you for looking out the window," I said, "but I'm going to punish you for using bad grammar. You were supposed to say you were looking out the window, Mr. Wiggins, not you was looking out the window, Mr. Wiggins. Get back in that corner and face the wall and stay there. One more word out of you and you'll spend the rest of the day standing on one leg." Sitting at my desk, I could hear the old men unloading the wood, throwing the long poles across the fence and into the churchyard. They were still kidding each other.
"Show me them grits. Show me them grits you had this morning." "I got my end up." "Well, I got the heavy end. You sure got that right."
They both laughed, and I heard the wood come across the fence. This went on for half an hour. Then one of the men knocked on the back door. I went to see what he wanted.
"Professor?"
he said, and smiled. Henry Lewis was a short black man with hardly any teeth. His hands were the color and texture of the legs of a snapping turtle. He wore an old straw hat, a green and brown plaid shirt, khaki pants, and rubber boots. He had grandchildren in the school.
"Some wood there," he said. "I'm leaving the saw and couple them axes. Your boys can chop it up."
"Appreciate it, Mr. Lewis," I said.
"Glad to be of service."
I spoke to Amos Thomas, who sat on the wagon. The thin, brown-skinned man nodded at me.
"That ought to hold you a while," Mr. Lewis said to me. "Just call for it run out. Somebody get you another load."
"Thanks," I said.
"Bye, Professor."
"Goodbye, Mr. Lewis, Mr. Thomas." I returned to my desk. "All right," I said to the class. "It's 11:45 now. I'm letting you out early because you'll have to chop wood this afternoon. I want you all back up here by 12:30. That afternoon, I stood by the fence while the 5th and 6th grade boys sawed and chopped the wood. The smaller boys and all the girls were inside. They wanted to know why they had to study while the older boys were outside having fun. I told them that they could have fun the next day, picking up chips and stacking wood while the older boys were inside studying. They did not see this as quite the same, but when I didn't give them any other choice, they grudgingly relented. I gave them assignments and left Irene Cole in charge. Standing by the fence, I watched the 5 older boys saw and chop the wood. 2 would saw, while another would straddle the wood pole to keep it steady. The other 2 boys split logs and chopped up small branches with the axes. They laughed and kidded each other while they worked. And I thought to myself, what am I doing? Am I reaching them at all? They are acting exactly as the old men did earlier. They are 50 years younger, maybe more, but doing the same thing those old men did who never attended school a day in their lives. Is it just a vicious circle? Am I doing anything? After a while, they exchanged the saw and axes. The ones who had been sawing were now splitting logs. The other 2 were pulling on the handles of the saw. The smallest boy still held the log as steady as he could with his hands and knees. With my back to the fence as I watched them, I remembered when it was I who had swung that axe and pulled my end of the saw, and I remembered the others too. Bill, Jerry, Claudie, Smitty, Snowball, all the others. They had chopped wood here too. Then they were gone to the fields, to the small towns, to the cities, where they died. There was always news coming back to the quarter about someone who had been killed or sent to prison for killing someone else. Snowball, stabbed to death at a nightclub in Port Allen. Claudie, killed by a woman in New Orleans. Smitty, sent to the state penitentiary at Angola for manslaughter. And there were others who did not go anywhere but simply died slower. The big mulatto from Pelea had predicted it, hadn't he? It was he, Matthew Antoine, as teacher then, who stood by the fence while we chopped the wood. He had told us then that most of us would die violently, and those who did not would be brought down to the level of beasts. Told us that there was no other choice but to run and run, that he was living testimony of someone who should have run. That in him, he did not say all this, but we felt it. There was nothing but hatred for himself as well as contempt for us. He hated himself for the mixture of his blood and the cowardice of his being, and he hated us for daily reminding him of it. No, he did not tell us this, but daily he showed us this, as clearly as anything. He showed his hatred for himself and for us. He could teach any of us only one thing, and that one thing was flight, because there was no freedom here. He said it, and he didn't say it, but we felt it. When we told our people how we felt, they told us to go back and learn all we could. There were those who did go back to learn, others who only went back. And having no place to run, they went into the fields, others went into the small towns and cities, seeking work and did even worse. But she told me that I would not be one of the others, that I would learn as much as he could teach me, then I would go away to learn from someone else, but that I would learn as much as he could teach me. And when he saw that I wanted to learn, he hated me even more than he did the others, because I challenged him when the others did not. The others believed what he said. They went out into the fields, went into the small towns and into the cities and died. "So you think you can?" he said. "So you think you can?" No, he did not say it with words, only with his eyes. "You'll be the loser, my friend." Maybe he did not say friend. He probably didn't say friend. Fool, more likely. "Anyway, you will be the loser," he said. "Yes, I will teach you. You want to learn, I will help you learn. Maybe in that way I will be free, knowing that someone else has taken the burden." "Good, good. You want to learn? Good, good. Here is the burden." Even after I had gone away for further education, on returning to the plantation to visit my aunt, I could still see the hatred in him. And after he had retired from teaching because of ill health, and I would visit him at his home in Pelea, I would still feel his hatred for himself, for me, for the world. Once, as I sat at the fireplace with him, he said to me, "Nothing pleases me more than when I hear of something wrong. Hitler had his reasons, and even the Ku Klux Klans of the South, for what they do. You don't believe me, do you?" he asked me. "No, sir, I don't," I said. "You will one day," he said. "I told you what you should have done, but no, you want to stay. Well, you will believe me one day. When you see that those 5.5 months you spend in that church each year are just a waste of your time, you will. You will. You'll see that it'll take more than 5.5 months to wipe away, peel, scrape away the blanket of ignorance that has been plastered and replastered over those brains in the past 300 years. You'll see." Then he would be quiet for a long time while we both stared into the fire. "I'm cold," he said one day while we sat there looking into the fire. I got up to put on another piece of wood. "That's no good," he said. "I'll still be cold. I'll always be cold." He looked at me. "You'll see. You'll see." "I must," I said. "No, you don't must," he said. "You want to, but you don't must." "You did," I said. "Yes, I did," he said. "But I told you not to. I told you to go."
God has looked after them these past 300 years without your help. He won't.
God? I said, because I had never heard him say God before. Because when we had said our Bible verses for him, he seemed to have hated the very words we spoke. Sir, did I hear you say,
I'm cold.
He cut me off.
I stay cold. You better go. Come back some other time if you like.
I made a mistake. I came back a month later. I remembered that it was cold that day, too. Now about that mulatto teacher and me. There was no love there for each other. There was not even respect. We were enemies, if anything at all. He hated me, and I knew it, and he knew I knew it. I didn't like him, but I needed him to tell me something that none of the others could or would. I brought some wine that day. He sent me into the kitchen to get 2 glasses. This will warm you up, I said.
Nothing can warm me up, he said.
He sat in the rocker gazing down at the fire with the blanket tight around him. He was a big-boned man, but very skinny now.
To flight, he said, raising his glass.
But you didn't go, I said.
I'm Creole, he said. Can't you tell?
Was that it? I asked him.
That was it, he said. I'm Creole. Do you know what a Creole is? A lying, cowardly bastard. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that, I said.
I was afraid, he said, looking into the fire. I was afraid to run away. What am I? Look at me. Where else could I have felt superior to so many but here?
Is that important? I asked him.
It is, he said, for everyone, especially for the whites and the near whites. It is important.
Do you feel superior to me? I asked him.
Of course, he said. Don't be a damn fool. I am superior to you. I am superior to any man blacker than me.
Is that why you hate me? I asked him.
Exactly, he said. Because that superior son of a bitch out there said I am you.
Do you think he is superior to you? I asked him.
Of course, he said.
Don't you? No, I said.
Just stay here long enough, he said. He'll make you the nigger you were born to be.
My only choice is to run then, I asked him.
That was your choice, but you won't. You want to prove I'm wrong. Well, you'll visit my grave one day and tell me how right I was.
Tell me more, I said.
What's wrong with that university? He asked. Don't they tell you?
They tell me how to succeed in the South as a colored man. They tell me about reading, writing, and arithmetic. I need to know about life.
I can't tell you anything about life, he said. What do I know about life? I stayed here. You have to go away to know about life. There's no life here. There's nothing but ignorance here. You want to know about life? Well, it's too late. Forget it. Just go on and be the nigger you were born to be. But forget about life. You make me tired and I'm cold. The wine doesn't help.
I visited him again only a month or 2 before he died, in the winter of '42. He was 43 years old. That was my first year as a teacher. I had been teaching 2 or 3 weeks when I visited him. We had just gotten our first load of wood for winter. Maybe that's why I had gone to see him. I could always remember that first load of wood for winter, how we older boys had chopped the wood into smaller pieces, while he stood back against the fence overseeing us. He looked terribly frail that day. I hadn't seen him in several months. He was being looked after by a relative who did not care too much for anyone visiting him, and especially darker people. She admitted me into the room and left us. He sat at the fireplace. Summer or winter, he always sat at the fireplace when he was inside. We shook hands. His hand was large, cold, and bony. He was coughing a lot. We got our first load of wood last week, I told him.
Nothing changes, he said.
I guess I'm a genuine teacher now, I said. He nodded and coughed. He didn't seem to want to talk. Still, I sat there, both of us gazing into the fire. Any advice? I asked him. Doesn't matter anymore, he said. Just do the best you can, but it won't matter. Chapter 9. At 1:30, I left school to take Miss Emma into Bayonne. She came out on the porch with Tant Lou, and she had a basket hung over one arm and a handbag in the other hand. Tant Lou closed the door to keep the heat in the room, and she and Miss Emma came down the walk and out to the car. Miss Emma wore her brown overcoat with the rabbit fur around the collar and cuffs. Tant Lou wore only a sweater, so I figured she was not going to Bayonne with us. She opened the door for Miss Emma to get into the back seat, and after shutting it, she leaned against the door to continue their conversation. I am sure they had been talking all day, but still they had things to talk about. This way is best, she said. Miss Emma may have nodded, but I'm not sure. I refused to look into the mirror at them. Anything else he need, let me know, my aunt went on. They got plenty of old socks and shirts around the place. I think we're supposed to be there around 2, I said, without looking back at them. I could feel both sets of eyes on the back of my neck. Tell him I'm praying, my aunt said. Y'all better go. I'll see you when you get back. She was talking to Miss Emma, not to me. She knew how I felt about the whole thing. I drove farther down the quarter and turned around. My aunt was standing where we had left her. She was waving now. You might have thought we were going to China instead of the 13 miles to Bayonne. Driving along the St. Charles River, I could feel Miss Emma not looking at me, not looking at anything, just thinking. Maybe once or twice she glanced in my direction, but most of the time she was lost in thought. Like my aunt, she knew how much I hated all this. So the 13 miles to Bayonne were driven in silence. I didn't say anything to her. She didn't say anything to me. I never looked at her in the rearview mirror. I never turned my head to the river on my right or to the houses on the side of the road to my left. As far up the highway as you could see were stalks of sugar cane that had fallen off the trailers on their way to the mill. The people were gathering pecans on either side of the road, but I looked at them only from a distance. If they waved, I did not wave back. I didn't want Miss Emma to think for a moment that my mood had changed. The courthouse, like most of the public buildings in town, was made of red brick. Built around the turn of the century, it looked like a small castle you might see in the countryside somewhere in Europe. The parking lot that surrounded the courthouse was covered with crushed seashells. A statue of a Confederate soldier stood to the right of the walk that led up to the courthouse door. Above the head of the statue, national, state, and Confederate flags flew on long metal poles. The big clock on the tower struck 2 as I parked opposite the statue and the flags. It took Miss Emma a while to get out of the car, so by the time we came into the sheriff's office, the clock on the wall there said 5 after 2. 2 deputies, dressed in gray chinos, and a colored prisoner in green coveralls with the letter P on the back, were in the office. The deputy behind the desk was giving the prisoner instructions. The younger deputy, who stood beside the desk, looked at us. "I come to see Jefferson," Miss Emma said. The young deputy nodded to the deputy who was giving orders to the prisoner. It had something to do with the floor of the outside toilet. This toilet was for colored people who came to the courthouse, and it was down in the basement. You entered it from the courthouse parking lot. I had gone in there once or twice myself, but it was always filthy, and like everyone I knew, I tried to avoid going down there. But that was the only place to go. The toilets inside were for whites only. "I want that done before I leave from here," the deputy told the prisoner. "I mean that, you hear?" The prisoner, 15 or 16 years old, bowed his head and left. "I come to see my boy, Jefferson," Miss Emma told the deputy behind the desk. "What you got there?" he asked her. Just some food, some clean clothes for him, Miss Emma said. Paul, the older man said. The deputy who stood beside the desk came toward us. How's he been? Miss Emma asked the deputy in charge. Quiet, the deputy said. Yes, sir, Miss Emma said. The deputy grinned. Jefferson's been quiet, Paul, the young deputy, told Miss Emma. Thank you, sir, Miss Emma said to him. The deputy went through the basket of food, fried chicken, bread, baked sweet potatoes, tea cakes. Then he went through the handbag of clothes. There was a pair of old blue jeans, an old overwashed brown shirt, a pair of long johns, and 2 pairs of my socks, which my aunt had given Miss Emma for Jefferson. Empty your pockets, he said to me. I had nothing but a wallet, a handkerchief, and some loose change. I had left my keys in the car. I laid the things on the desk. Is that it? The deputy asked me. He had brown hair and gray-blue eyes, and he appeared to be a couple of years younger than I was. He looked pretty decent. The one behind the desk didn't look decent at all. His eyes were the color of cement. He had a big neck and a fleshy face. He was much older and much heavier than Paul. Paul patted me down to see if I had taken everything out of my pockets. Then he told me that I could put my things back. Sheriff explained everything to y'all? Chief Deputy asked us. Sir? Miss Emma said. The chief deputy could see that I didn't like him, and I could tell he didn't like me. But he knew who was in charge, and that I would have to take anything he dished out. No knives, no forks, no plates. Pans, he said to Miss Emma. That was after he had looked at me a long time to let me know what he thought of me. No hat pins, no pocket knives, no razor blades, no ice picks, he said, looking at me again. Jefferson won't never do nothing like that, Miss Emma said. You can't ever tell, the deputy said. Take them on up, Paul. Follow me, the young deputy said. We followed him down a long, dark corridor, passing offices with open doors and bathrooms for white ladies and white men. At the end of the corridor, we had to go up a set of stairs. The stairs were made of steel. There were 6 steps, then a landing, a sharp turn, and another 6 steps. Then we went through a heavy steel door to the area where the prisoners were quartered. The white prisoners were also on this floor, but in a separate section. I counted 8 cells for black prisoners, with 2 bunks to each cell. Half of the cells were empty. The others had 1 or 2 prisoners. They reached their hands out between the bars and asked for cigarettes or money. Miss Emma stopped to talk to them. She told them she didn't have any money, but she had brought some food for Jefferson, and if there was anything left, she would give it to them. They asked me for money, and I gave them the change I had. There was an empty cell between Jefferson and the rest of the prisoners. He was at the end of the cell block and was lying on his bunk when we came up. The deputy unlocked the door for us, and Miss Emma and I went in. The deputy told us that he would have to lock us in and that he would return within an hour. Miss Emma thanked him, and he locked the door and left. Jefferson still lay on his bunk, staring up at the ceiling. He didn't look at us once. "How you feel, Jefferson?" Miss Emma asked him. He didn't answer and kept his eyes on the ceiling. The cell was roughly 6 by 10, with a metal bunk covered by a thin mattress and a woolen army blanket, a toilet without seat or toilet paper, a wash bowl, brownish from residue and grime, a small metal shelf upon which was a pan, a tin cup, and a tablespoon. A single light bulb hung over the center of the cell, and at the end opposite the door was a barred window, which looked out onto a sycamore tree behind the courthouse. I could see the sunlight on the upper leaves. But the window was too high to catch sight of any other buildings or the ground. "I come to see you and brung you something," Miss Emma said. We were standing because there was no place to sit. "You been all right?" she asked him. He lay there looking up at the ceiling. His hair had grown out since the trial, but I'm sure he had not combed it once. I told myself that I would bring him a comb next time I came. "I brought Professor Wiggins," Miss Emma said. I brought you some fried chicken, some good old yams, and I brought you some tea cakes, too. He looked up at the ceiling. Ain't you gonna ask me to sit down, Jefferson? He looked up at the ceiling, but he wasn't seeing the ceiling. Miss Emma put the handbag of clothes and the basket of food on the floor and sat down on the bunk beside him. I should say that she sat as much of herself on the bunk as she could. About half, I would say. She passed her hand over his forehead and over his hair. Ain't you gonna speak to me, Jefferson? She asked. He remained quiet. She stroked his hair again. You want to just talk to me? You want Professor Wiggins to leave? He didn't answer her. You want me to go and you just talk to Professor Wiggins? He still didn't answer. She looked up at me. She was ready to cry, and I wished I were somewhere else. Hand me that basket, Grant, she said. I passed her the basket, and she took out a piece of chicken wrapped in brown paper. She unwrapped the drumstick and held it before Jefferson. Look what I brought you, she said. I knowed how much you like my fried chicken. Brought you some yams and some tea cakes, too. Ain't you gonna try some of it? It don't matter, I heard him say. He was looking up at the ceiling. What don't matter? He didn't answer. What don't matter, Jefferson? Nothing don't matter, he said, looking up at the ceiling but not seeing the ceiling. It matter to me, Jefferson, she said. You matter to me. He looked up at the ceiling, not seeing it. Jefferson? Chicken, dirt, it don't matter, he said. Yeah, it do, Jefferson. Yeah, it do. Dirt? All the same, he said, it don't matter. My chicken? She said. I'm tasting it right now. She took a small bite. You always liked my chicken. Every Sunday. He was quiet. You like a yam? She asked him. He didn't answer her. You want a tea cake? You don't have to eat no chicken if you don't want. You don't have to eat no old yam neither. But I know how much you like my tea cakes. I didn't bring no clabber, but... Jefferson? When they gonna do it, tomorrow? Do what, Jefferson? He was quiet, looking up at the ceiling but not seeing it. What, Jefferson? He turned toward her. His body didn't turn, just his head turned a little. His eyes did most of the turning. He looked at her as though he did not know who she was or what she was doing there. Then he looked at me. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? His eyes said. They were big brown eyes, the whites too reddish. You know, don't you? His eyes said again. I looked back at him. My eyes would not dare answer him, but his eyes knew what my eyes knew. You with him? He asked me. With who? I said. His eyes mocked me. They were big brown eyes, and the whites were too reddish, and he had been thinking too much the past few weeks, and the eyes mocked me. You the one? He asked me. The one for what? I said. His big brown eyes with reddish whites mocked me. Gonna jack that switch? He said, looking at me. What switch? Miss Emma said. He was looking at me, not at her. His eyes told me that I knew what switch he was talking about. That's Professor Wiggins, your teacher. What switch? She asked. He turned his head and began staring up at the ceiling again. The deputy came back and stood just outside the cell. Miss Emma still sat on the bunk, but now Jefferson had turned his back to her and was facing the gray concrete wall. Miss Emma passed her hand over his hair again. Then she pushed herself up from the bunk. I'm leaving, Jefferson, she said. I'll come back soon. The deputy opened the cell door to let us out. Can I leave the food? Miss Emma asked him. Sure, the deputy said. If he don't eat it all, can you give it to the rest of them children? Sure, the deputy said. He locked the cell door. I'm leaving, Jefferson. Miss Emma said, looking back into the cell. He faced the gray concrete wall and didn't answer her. "Oh, Lord Jesus," she cried. "Oh, Lord Jesus, stand by, stand by." The deputy and I exchanged glances. With his eyes and a nod, he told me to put my arms around her, which I did. Chapter 10. Our next two visits went pretty much as the first one did. I picked up Miss Emma at her house at around 1:30. My aunt was always there with her, and after she had settled down into the back seat of the car, we drove in silence all the way into Bayonne. Each time we arrived 5 or 10 minutes before the hour. The food was searched. I was asked to take everything out of my pockets, then told to put everything back into my pockets, and we were led down the narrow, dark wood corridor, passing the open office doors where white men and white women carried on their daily routines. The deputy walked a step ahead of us, with Miss Emma directly behind him and me beside her. At the end of the corridor, we would climb the steps to the first landing, where the deputy would wait a minute to allow Miss Emma to catch her breath. Then we would continue on up to the next floor and through the heavy steel door to the cell block. The prisoners would hear us coming, and they would stand at the cell doors with their hands stuck out between the bars. As she had done the first time, Miss Emma promised that they could have the food Jefferson did not eat. As I had done the first time, I gave them the change I had in my pockets, which was always less than $1. Then we would move down the line to the last cell. Jefferson always lay on the bunk, either looking at the ceiling or facing the wall. Each time, the deputy opened the door and locked us in. Jefferson had no more to talk about the second or third time than he did the first, and after we had spent an hour with him, we were let out. Each time, Miss Emma left the cell crying, and both times she told the young deputy to give the food to the other children. On Friday, our fourth visit, I left Irene Cole in charge of the school and instructed her to let the children go at 3. If she felt that they had done all their schoolwork before 3, she could dismiss them early, because it was getting colder and most of the children would have work to do at home. I had to go down to my aunt's house to get my car. Then I drove back up the corridor to Miss Emma's. Usually she was waiting for me, but not today. I sat out there in the car a good 5 minutes, but no Miss Emma. I didn't want to blow the horn. I thought that might show impatience and disrespect. But still, no Miss Emma. The door was shut, and the only thing to give the place any sign of life was a trickle of white smoke rising occasionally out of the chimney. After sitting out there another couple of minutes, I put patience and respect aside. I pressed on the horn hard and long enough for everybody in the corridor to hear it. I had given up my class to take her to Bayonne, and she was not ready, and I wanted them all to know about it. Finally, the door did open. My aunt came out on the porch and pushed the door shut behind her. She stood there watching me. I knew that stand. I knew that look. I knew that she was not coming one step farther and that I would have to come to her. She still watched me as I got out of the car and came up the walk. I stopped short of the porch. "Something wrong with you?" she asked me. I wanted to ask that same question about Miss Emma, but I held my tongue. "Don't you know if she was able she would be out here?" "Then why didn't she tell me she wasn't going? I could be teaching my class." "Nobody said you wasn't going." "You're saying I'm supposed to visit him alone? He's no kin—" "Come on in here, boy, and get that bag," my aunt said. She watched me come up on the porch and go by her. Then she followed me into the house. Miss Emma was sitting at the fireplace in a rocking chair. She had on 2 sweaters, a black one over a green one. She had some kind of rag, possibly a baby's diaper, tied around her head. I stood in the center of the room near the hanging light bulb. I had the feeling that Miss Emma was not nearly as sick as she was pretending to be. For one thing, I had seen her that morning picking up chips in the yard, and she didn't look sick at all. And now I could smell fried chicken and baked potato, and I knew she could not have done all that if she was dying. My aunt sat down in the rocker next to Miss Emma's. Now both of them peered into the fireplace, at the 2 half-burnt logs that gave about as much fire as a candle would. Neither said a thing, as if they were sitting alone in deep thought. Then Miss Emma coughed twice, short and dry, to let me know that she was on her deathbed. Then silence again. There was smoke in the room, and I must have cleared my throat or something, because my aunt used that moment to speak. That food waiting. I didn't know where the food was waiting for me. I didn't look for it. I just stood back looking at them. "He don't have to go," Miss Emma said. She coughed again, reminding me that she was still on her deathbed. "Not if it gonna be a burden." My aunt looked back at me. "I said that food waiting." "Miss Emma's dying, but you can go with me," I said. "I don't have on my good dress," my aunt said. "I can wait," I said. "No, you won't," she said. "Don't force him," Miss Emma said. "When I'm able to get on my feet, God willing, I'll get somebody else to take me up there. I don't want to be a burden on nobody." As I stood there listening to her, I realized that this had been planned from the beginning. All that other stuff I went through was to lead up to this day. Going up to Pachot's house, meeting the sheriff, the 3 visits to the jail with her, all that was nothing but preparation for today. Didn't she say it that first night at Pachot's? "I'm old. My heart won't take it. I want somebody else to take my place." Didn't she say it? Sure she did. Because it was planned even then. But she had had help. My aunt. She coughed again, quick, dry, faked, as before. I told myself that what she needed was more wood on the fire. I went to the corner of the room where the wood was stacked, and I piled as many logs on my arms as I could stand up with. Then I threw them all into the fireplace. Sparks of fire shot across the hearth into the room, and smoke and ashes shot up the chimney. I brushed off my clothes and stood there until the wood had started burning. "Can I do anything else, Miss Emma?" I said. "Maybe some cough syrup?" "You can watch your tongue, sir," my aunt said. "I just want Miss Emma to get better," I said. "He don't have to go," Miss Emma said. "He's going," my aunt said. "If it's a burden," Miss Emma said. "Maybe I'll go halfway," I said. "Maybe I'll dump the food out there in the river. Fishes don't get much to eat in the winter. Maybe they like fried chicken." "You better get that food and get out of here if you know what's good for you," my aunt said. I went back into the kitchen and snatched the bag off the table. There was enough food in it to feed everybody in the jail. "Everything you sent me to school for, you're stripping me of it," I told my aunt. They were looking at the fire, and I stood behind them with the bag of food. The humiliation I had to go through, going into that man's kitchen, the hours I had to wait while they ate and drank and socialized before they would even see me. Now going up to that jail, to watch them put their dirty hands on that food, to search my body each time as if I'm some kind of common criminal. Maybe today they'll want to look into my mouth or my nostrils or make me strip. Anything to humiliate me. All the things you wanted me to escape by going to school. Years ago, Professor Antoine told me that if I stayed here, they were going to break me down to the nigger I was born to be. But he didn't tell me that my aunt would help them do it. She got up slowly, heavily, and went to Miss Emma, who had begun to shake her head and cry. Miss Emma sincerely did not want me to go now, but my aunt had not changed her mind for a moment. "I'm sorry, Mr. Grant. I'm helping them white people to humiliate you. I'm so sorry. And I wish they had somebody else we could turn to. But they ain't nobody else."